Okay, yeah, there we go. So I think a really good example of, and quite an exciting example of the service that we provide is that we've just been contracted with some people that are doing Southampton's first Comic-Con. So there's going to be a big event at, I think it's the Aegeus Bowl. It's either the Aegeus Bowl or the Guildhall. The reason of the confusion is because they're doing a horror conference as well. So, but in terms of the Comic-Con, what we're providing for them is obviously building their website at the moment. But we're also building an app for them, and that app is going to be able for users to book their autographs with their favorite comic characters and book their photo shoots. In the run up to that event, we're also going to be providing an email marketing service and also an SMS marketing service as well, which is something we've is a relatively new string to our bow. So there's a whole range of different products and services that we are providing them, and we'll be managing them, throughout as well. So as and when they get new guests confirmed for their shows, and I think they may well be about to secure the guy who plays Freddy Krueger for their HorrorCon. So it's all quite exciting stuff. The app that we're going to build for them is quite an interesting one, and that's probably a good segue into my presentation, if that's good for everyone. So let me try and share my screen.
You should be able to. I've just given you rights.
Cool. Right, hopefully you can see PowerPoint, not my P&L. Is that right? Can you see PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Panic over. I've just realised I probably should have. All right. So, okay. Let's go for it. So, mobile apps. People tend to think of mobile apps as the preserve for big corporates, such as Wetherspoons, Starbucks, so on and so forth. And I suppose 5-10 years ago that was the case, but as with a lot of things, the technology has moved on, and the scale of that technology has moved on, and the price point has come down. So we've done apps for very, very small cafes all the way through to a chain of bars as well. So no really big companies, and they're really, really affordable. I think we all know how important apps are in our lives now, and how much time we spend on them, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever else. But I think the key thing here, or two key things here to consider are that apps are obviously, with the risk of stating the obvious, are obviously designed for mobile devices, and as a result they are going to be easier to use than even the best and most responsive and most friendly mobile designed website that you could ever hope to have. Okay, and generationally, we're spending more and more time on our phones, and so they're becoming more and more important. So that begs the question: should you have a website, or should you have an app? Right. Well, if it's a binary choice, the website is definitely the case. Or there's so many reasons why a website's more important than an app. But an app can add significant value to your business and your online presence, and that's what we'll look at today. So there's a number of commercial models that you can employ. You can have a subscription model. So as it sounds, the users that download that app will pay £1, £2, £3, £5, whatever per month. That what you have to remember with that is that Google and Apple will take 30% of that. You can have it as a one-off purchase. Okay, so both of those basic commercial models but they're not very popular. Okay, tends to be now that all apps are free and you'll pay. They'll be monetized in different ways, whether it's an in-app purchase or whether it's encouraging people to frequent your business. So, what can you do with an app? Okay, the short answer is you can do pretty much anything if you throw enough development resource at it and enough money and enough time at it. There's not a lot you can't do with an app, and that's sort of underlined by the 3.5 million apps in the App Store today. But realistically, what are they used for? So, and particularly what do small businesses use them for? Well, generally, it's these types of services. So a loyalty scheme is quite common. So rather than having a little piece of card in your wallet, or more likely several little cards in your pocket where you get a stamp on, and after 5 coffees you'll get the next one free. That can all be transferred onto an app really, really, really easily. And in fact, you can be a little bit more sophisticated and have it as a points-based system. So if you spend X, you get Y, and that's something that's very, very common within the apps that we do. Food ordering, everyone's probably thinking about takeaways here, and that's absolutely a valid use for apps. But also, you can also have them for in-house food ordering or in-house drinks ordering. So if you picture the situation that you're in a beautiful sunny summer's day, you're in a pub garden with several friends, and you either have to get up, walk to the bar, wait 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on how busy it is, and then order your drinks, get your drinks, delicately walk back with your tray of drinks, trying not to spill any, and by that time you've missed 20 minutes of conversation. The conversation's moved on. Or there's the situation where you're desperately trying to catch the waiter's or the waitress's eye, which if you're like me, you can never do without leaning dangerously back on your chair and putting your life in peril. But there is a third way, and that is you could just go onto that restaurant or that bar's app and order your drinks and have them delivered to your table. And that's so much easier. You don't miss any conversation, and you don't miss any of that experience. And actually, what that does is that promotes, because it's so easy, it actually promotes people to order more and more frequently. And so that's definitely something that we do quite often. E-commerce. So I have a couple of customers, and one in particular that has a cafe that also sells a range of CBD products as well. And so their app is primarily to order coffees and so on, but they also have their stock on their app, and people can go in and purchase those items there. Booking. So booking tables, obviously, that's an obvious one, but you could be, for PTs or personal trainers or gyms, that you can have a booking system within that, so you can book onto your yoga class or your Pilates or whatever it is you're doing. And actually, my wife went on a virtual yoga retreat in the middle of the pandemic, and that was all done via an app and all conducted over the app. So that's definitely something that's really easy to do. Messaging, I don't think we need to spend any time on. I think that's self-explanatory. Then one of the things that we've had an inquiry about just lately is having a location-specific app. So it's going to be, if it happens, it will be a combination of a directory of all those businesses in that location and a guide of what's on in that location and what to do in that location. And it will also have a little bit of some activities as well, so some quizzes, and so it will be almost an activity-based app as well. So imparting information, being able to find local businesses, that's something that can be built into an app really, really easily, and it lends itself to it. I don't. Some of you may or may not know that I have an app for local, a directory of local businesses in the forest. We've got something like 3,000 downloads of that app now. So that's absolutely possible. Push notifications. Now, this is a really, really powerful marketing tool. So a push notification, for those of you not sure, is are those messages that pop up on your home screen of your phone. Okay. And as a business, if you have an app, you can push those messages onto people's home screen or users' home screens of their phone. And you can do that there's 3 different ways you can do that. One is as an ad hoc message. So maybe you own a restaurant and you've had a cancellation, and you can quickly blast out a notification to all of your users or all of your customers that have downloaded the app that now you've got some availability to try and fill that table. It could be that you have a scheduled regular notification that goes out. So maybe you have a music on a Friday or a happy hour on a Tuesday, and every a few hours before that happens or that occurs, that notification just goes out and runs in the background. But there is a third form of a notification, and that's a geocentric notification. So what we're looking at here is the back end of my app of Experiencing New Forest, and what we can do is we can geofence a particular area, so that if any of our 3,000 users enter this circle or exit this circle, depending on how we set it up, we can push them a notification. So if you imagine, if you're a bar in the centre of Brockenhurst, right, the moment someone walks into this area or gets off the train, they get a notification on their phone to say, "Welcome to Brockenhurst. Why don't you pop in, and here's a discount code for your first drink." It's that just-in-time marketing that it pushes people for those impulse buys and impulse visits. So that's something that's really, really powerful. So use cases, what are the best types of industries and to look at that should be considering apps? Pubs and bars, I think that's something, we don't need to talk about that. I think Wetherspoons have nailed that for many years. And cafes and takeaways, again, Starbucks led the way with that. And again, I would emphasize that you don't need the budget of Starbucks. It can be done very, very reasonably, and the return on investment, can be, you don't need lots and lots of customers to get a good return on your investment. Gyms, personal trainers, yoga teachers, anything with classes, that can be, that's definitely an industry that can benefit from an app, because you can upload videos into them and push video libraries and monetize those as online classes. Shops, again, another I would say seemingly obvious one, and leaving trades to last, because we've got a really interesting case study on trades, which I'll go through in a couple of slides, and it's quite an unexpected one, and these took me by surprise. So we'll come on to those in a few moments. So I just want to talk through a couple of customers that I have for apps. One is a very, very, very small cafe. They've got like 50, I think it's even less than 50 downloads of their app. They wanted it as a basically as a loyalty scheme, but they also have remote ordering as well. So you can go onto their app and you can order your coffee or your bacon sandwich, or whatever it is you want, and arrange to collect it or get it delivered, depending on where you are. Now, regularly, pretty much every day, they'll get orders for between 3 and 10 different orders a day between 7:30 and 9 o'clock. People going into the office that will be driving by, that will stop and go and collect their coffee, or they'll actually deliver, dependent on where you are. The people that come in will also tend to buy Danish or bacon sandwich or something else as well. So that app that they've invested in generates probably around 20 to 30 pound a day for them, and that's pretty much every day. And actually, the days where the weather is worse, they get more orders. So it's not tourists, it's not visitors, it's people that live and work in that very close proximity, and it just keeps ticking on. Then another quite traditional sort of case study for mobile apps, which is a small Chinese takeaway. They use Uber Eats. For those of you who don't know, Uber, Deliveroo, Just Eat do charge quite extortionate rates for any takeaways, up to 30. I've seen it at 33% plus VAT before. So these guys were getting absolutely hammered by Uber, and so what they've done is they've started to encourage customers to order via their own app by reducing the cost slightly, only very, very slightly, and putting a loyalty scheme in place. And they've managed to migrate 70 customers onto their app that were regularly using Uber Eats, and that's saving over, sort of over £500 a month actually. So so it's a significant saving for what's quite a small local company. Now we've got a rather unexpected use case or customer, and I never ever saw this one coming, I have to say. So one of my customers is a large commercial, or not large, a roofing company. There's actually only 3 of them employed in it. They do the commercial cladding, commercial roofing on industrial units, and each day they have between 5 and 20 self-employed subcontractors that come and work for them. And every day, those self-employed contractors, have to sign a declaration to say that they're adequately insured, that they're fit and able to work, that they're going to adhere to the company's health and safety policy, and so on. And there's about half a dozen questions in that declaration. And what they then do is they then sign the declaration. This is all on the app. They sign it with their finger, press the submit button, and it goes straight into the office, and they've got a physical permanent record, so that if something happens and that guy isn't insured, they've fulfilled their duty of care. So that was quite an interesting use case. Another quite interesting one is a plumber that I have, and he has his guys. They have an iPad, and there's effectively a checklist on that iPad. And so when they go quoting, rather than doing a bit of paper, they pull out their iPad. They look really sophisticated, and they just go, "Have I quoted for a bath? Yeah. Have I quoted for tiles? Yeah. Do they want a shower? Yes, no." So on and so forth. And when they And what they can also do is with the stylus is they can draw a rough plan of that bathroom and what's needed, and make any sort of physical notes and what have you. Press submit, and it goes back into the office, and they start working on that quote straight away. So some really kind of really unexpected uses for mobile apps when you consider, cafes, restaurants, bars. It's kind of a given almost, but there's so many different uses for apps and ways that they can add value. It's quite surprising. You'll probably be pleased to know that's it. So, if there are any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Okay, thanks very much, John. Yeah, particularly when you start to use the examples of cases where it's been used, particularly the slightly unusual ones, not just, as you say, the sort of eateries and so forth. Yeah, you get a real picture for how apps can start to make business life a lot more efficient. I mean, with your roofing contractor, it then prompted the question: well, could he also be using that to log the times of the subbies and tie it into his HR and accounting system? It's got quite a lot of possibilities, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that they have spoken about, particularly the time, logging the time. I think, and that would be quite simple, but to have that integration into the accounting package, that would be a little bit more difficult. I think that's you're dependent on APIs and possibly a bit of coding, but yeah, that's the actual logging of time. That's something that they are looking at as well.
John, now that people have a decent time to write down your details there, can I stop screen?
Yeah. Sorry.
Get the better views. Here
we
are.
Let's do that.
Okay. By the way, if anyone wants to post their contact details in the chat box, don't forget to do so. That's a bit of intro that I failed to do earlier. But any questions from the floor for potential thoughts that have been prompted in your mind around the use of apps? Jane, have you got some questions?
Well, I can't help being fascinated, obviously, by the Experience New Forest one, which I've just downloaded and also signed up for your newsletter. I'm fascinated that I had to give my postal address to get your e-newsletter, but yeah, I did have to. So who's behind this?
The Experience of New Forest. Yeah, that's something that I built almost as a started off as a pet project, and we did it probably exactly the wrong time, sort of just before the second or third lockdown, and it's something that we haven't really pushed really. We've got sort of 100 on sort of people, companies on there, and about 3,000 downloads. So yeah, it's been an interesting project. I've neglected it somewhat, I have to say.
Perhaps we ought to have a separate chat about it sometime. It's kind of quite an interesting overlap.
Yeah, we're looking at another one that's even more even more granular for a particular village in the forest as well.
Because when I first saw you mentioning in your presentation, I thought you meant the one that we got told about the other day, which is called New Forest Hub.
Okay, I don't know that one. I'm going to have to have a look at that.
Lots of these things happening, isn't there?
Okay, right. Anyone else got any thoughts? I mean, Chris, is it potentially of use for your business for bookings, or is your demographic perhaps not the biggest users of apps?
It's interesting. I'm sort of sitting there pondering over it, thinking, well, what can we do in terms of information? Because we've got a good functioning website, but it's what do you do next? And actually, I think our demographic of patient base are all, to a point, are all users of smartphones now, principally either they've used them or have access to them, or certainly the grandchildren do, or whatever in between. So it's food for thought. I'm thinking about it, thinking, well, in terms of information and potentially patient booking in the future, it's possibly got some legs. So yeah, I've given it some thought, just sitting here pondering over it, how it could work. or if it would work. So yeah, I think from a, in terms of providing information for patients, I think there's a good opportunity there, and that's principally what we want to do, is look after our patients. So give us some further thought, I think.
I mean, one of the things
can I ask an idiot question? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Just my thought process. Presumably, you have to have the client on your database in order for them to use your app, because otherwise you've got a GDPR issue. You can't just sort of home in on anyone that happens to be sort of approaching your business.
No. They have to download the app. Okay, so and that's probably one of the biggest challenges is in the marketing of the app. Well, there's actually two big challenges with apps. One is getting downloads, and the second one is monetizing them. For if you're a commercial organization, so you could call that engagement. But yeah, they have to download the app, absolutely.
But take it, if you had a cafe that had a customer that came in, you'd suggest to them, would you like to sign up to our app, and next time you can sort of phone us and have your coffee ready for you when you come, kind of scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that, it's that like all marketing, it's a process, not a task, right? So it's a constant thing. And so, they'll have, they'll have QR codes. We can download it directly, by the till. They'll have, little tent type business cards on the tables, again with download our app, QR code, and so on. And they'll always ask. And you have to incentivize people. You have to give them some value, and the loyalty scheme goes a long way to doing that. So absolutely.
I can see that revolutionising the hospitality industry.
Yeah, I think it's already a long way along that road. If you look at the likes of sort of Wetherspoons and and Starbucks, they've sort of been doing that for quite a few years now. But the cost of apps has come right the way down, and it is affordable, for very, very, very small businesses. So yeah, as long as you don't want anything bespoke and developed.
You sometimes see people offering sort of almost like templated apps for restaurant businesses or whatever. Do they really work, or do you have to have a fair degree of customization to make sense of it?
It depends what you want. If you just want an app that's going to have a loyalty scheme and a food ordering system in there, and maybe a table booking, then a templated app is going to be fine for that. It depends. Depends on how sophisticated you want to be. If you look at the Wetherspoons app, where someone can buy someone else in a completely different venue food, and that was designed for when students are at college and university, their parents can, if they're in a Wetherspoons, their parents can buy them a meal and get it delivered to them, right? When you start talking about sort of functionality like that, it's reasonably sophisticated. It sounds simple, but it's reasonably sophisticated. But yeah, so that would be quite kind of problematic. That would require some bespoke development. But generally, for the vast majority of particularly small businesses, then you don't need a huge amount of development. Customizations, yeah, absolutely. You need some of that.
You've got to pay staff to carry drinks out to the customers rather than having them from the bar, which might be an issue.
Or you can pay by the app as well. That's something that can be done. So you can order, pay, and that's really easy to do.
Yeah, if it increases your throughput of orders, then it's got to do a good thing, hasn't it?
Yes.
Hey, did I see you hopping up and down just now?
Yeah, I was only going to, it's sort of following up on what Elaine asked, actually, because when I downloaded that New Forest one, I very quickly checked the box of when to get notifications, is it?
Yeah.
And of course, you say when I'm using the app. So I suppose it's part of the same thing. You've got to remember to use the app, haven't you?
Yeah, with notifications, you can agree to get notifications anytime. You can say only when I'm using the app, or you can have not at all.
So having selected one, can you go back and change your selection? Because I've in a hurry, I just selected that one.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try that now then. Right. Goodbye again.
Well, correct me if I'm
I'll
wrong.
go mute.
That'll keep her quiet for a couple of minutes, John. Okay. Anyone else got any questions or comments around apps or potential usage of apps for their business? Caroline.
Can I just put a slightly light-hearted comment on that? Those hospitality apps that were so much loved during lockdown or whatever it was, several of them were so blooming clever. I lost the will to live and ended up going up to the bar and begging to order in person. Because unless you know the menu and what all the bits are, you can't find the things. And as for an app where you can order a meal in another pub, I think I'd manage that several times. So I'd be sitting in one pub and have it delivered down the road.
The rule for apps, okay, the general rule whenever you're designing an app is it should do one or two things really, really well. If you try and do too much with them, then it becomes unusable, and it becomes too complex. And the moment anyone has to, think when they're using your app, the chances are that they probably won't, and they'll just go back to what they've done previously, because it should enhance, right? It should enhance the experience, not annoy you and stress you out.
Yeah, that's a really important point, isn't it? And typically, you think of app users as tending to be quite a young demographic, and Chris has already said a lot of his patients have now got smartphones, so you'll be having people on there that are not so used to it. Do you sort of use user personas and do a lot of testing when you're putting an app together?
I think any project we work on, we always try and focus on the customer avatar, right? The perfect customer who's going to use it. Is it going to be appropriate? How are they going to use it? And like I say, generally, the apps that we do one or two things, and we try and keep it at that point. And as with websites, you kind of have to sometimes put the reins on people's enthusiasm, because they'll want to do everything, and it's like, well, hang on, it's not going to work. Well, it'll work, but if people have to think about what they're doing, they generally won't. It's like a good example of that is menus, right? So when we're doing, our advice is on menus is to always on an app cut the menu right down. So have no more than 6 choices, at any stage. So there might be 6 mains, 6 starters, 6 desserts, and then what you don't want to do is that you don't want to then have another load of options of, do you want mustard, do you want ketchup, do you want brown sauce, and then do you want, so on and so forth, because at that point it's like, just what, so I can't be doing with this. I'm going to get up and I'm going to just go and walk to a bar and have a conversation. So yeah, it's keeping it. It's keeping it simple.
Caroline.
I used to work with somebody and we used to build a lot of apps, and he always used to give it to me to break. I guarantee I will destroy most apps very quickly because of my mind just doesn't operate by menus and clicking buttons and things. So if ever you want somebody to test your apps, I'm your man.
There you are.
I'll bear that in mind.
Okay.
I can report that I think I'm going to have to, I closed it and then I opened it again and I couldn't change it. So presumably I have to get rid of
I'll
it.
have a look at it. I'm pretty okay. I'll have a look at it. It might be in actually it might be in the settings of your phone rather than settings of
Oh,
the app
okay.
Yeah.
Right,
in terms of your
right.
notification.
Yeah, no,
settings.
okay, I'll try that later. Thank you.
I've done a crafty download of the app as well, and I didn't have to give a postal address, so I've obviously given some kind of consent that's bypassed all that at
Ah,
stage. So it's it's looking pretty good, John. Actually, quite enjoying that.
What's the name of the app?
It's Experience the New Forest.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from John while we've got him captive? Okay. Thanks, John, for a very thought-provoking and clearly put together presentation there. Lots and lots to think about. And sorry, I'm watching Jane's face as she goes on a journey of exploration.
no, only because I forgot to write down your contact details, that's all.
Okay, I can pop them in the chat actually if you.
Yeah,
do
could you
that.
you'd
and
like
I'll
to
just
do.
grab them. Thank you.
And while you're doing that, I'll just tell people about next week's Business Support Hour. We've got Heidi Roper, another NFBP director, back. She is talking on the topic of how to maintain a constructive and positive personal review with your team members. So as we all turn our team members back into the workplace, we start to think about reviews and getting back to normal life. So Heidi's going to be talking about that in her quarterly update. She does regular updates for NFBP, and she's